everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this jam-packed Wednesday show. We've got a ton to talk about. Obviously, getting my Steelers getting the job done on Monday Night Football against the New York Football Giants. Closer game than I anticipated, but in some ways a bit of a misleading final score. I'll get into why. As crazy as this might sound, folks, the Steelers might actually be a Super Bowl contender. And I didn't think I'd say that as a Steelers fan, honest to God, before the season. Get into that later in the show. Very excited to talk about that. Also, we got Bryce's best 10 later on in about 45 minutes. My top 10 teams in the National Football League. A ton of shakeup. There's teams that were in the top 5 that are now in the top 5 and vice versa. So a lot of shakeup. It was a crazy week 8. A lot of upsets around the National Football League. Getting to those predictions for Jets, Texans at the end of today's show for reasons I cannot quite understand. The Jets are favored. They're favored, ladies and gentlemen, despite losing 5 in a row against the 6-2 Houston Texans, albeit the beat up 6-2 Houston Texans. And we'll obviously get into carving up the context. A good one today, fitting as we are obviously less than a week out of this consequential presidential election. Nick Bosa wearing the MAGA hat after the 49ers win over the Cowboys. And there's been a lot of fallout because of it. It's of course, a lot of controversy around Trump around this election. I kind of wanted to go into the context of it and what people are missing about that particular story. I'll say that. I will say this, though. I'll take my Steelers hat off for... Oh, excuse me. There almost went the mic. Put this on for a moment because it is obviously Halloween, and I want to celebrate. Let's see. We straighten this. There we go. So, listen, I'm a Star Wars fan, so I'm obviously going to try and rep the best way that I can. So, I wore the Darth Vader helmet last year. I decided, okay, should I do Boba Fett? Should I do Kylo Ren? Should I do a Stormtrooper? I figure Mandalorian was a pretty conservative choice, but nonetheless a fitting one. I'd say fair enough to say, along with Andor, the two most popular Star Wars shows on Disney Plus. So there you go. Definitely wanted to be in the spirit for Halloween because, of course, this is one of my favorite holidays of the year. So had to put on for my fellow Star Wars fans. But let me get this. I see Parnell's got a comment real quick. He says, thoughts on Anthony Richardson being benched. I'll touch on that after the segment's over. Parnell, I think you're going to hear my thoughts on that, but I have a pretty strong take on it. Get into that later on today's show. But first, the Steelers won again, and this is now a couple of wins in a row. Or actually 3 wins in a row. Raiders, Jets, Giants, not exactly world beaters. Those are 3 with 2-win teams, but it's another win for Pittsburgh. Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. So 26-18, the final score against the New York Giants. Listen, I said coming into this year for my Steelers, it was pretty simple. Defense is going to be awesome because it always is. They got the best defensive player in football. It's not even remotely close. His name, TJ Watt. He had 2 sacks this game, including a massive forced fumble, strip sack in the fourth quarter on Daniel Jones to really kind of help the Steelers maintain that 8-point lead and get to the finish line intact with the W. We know Mike Tomlin's a great coach. No losing seasons. Didn't think that changed this year. We know the Steelers have some offensive talent. George Pickens, Najee Harris, who's been on fire as of lately. Jalen Warren, Pat Freiermuth. They got pieces. They just didn't have that guy, that franchise quarterback, manning the ship. Now, for the record, I'm still skeptical about whether or not they do. Extremely skeptical long-term because it's only a 2-game sample size. But here's what we know is that, and I was, for the record, a big critic of Mike Tomlin benching Justin Fields after the 4-2 start. Yeah, Justin wasn't putting up insane stat totals, but he was playing good football, not turning it over, playing within Arthur Smith's offense. And my thing was, let's at least see if maybe in what's going to be a weak quarterback draft next year, maybe if Justin Fields is the answer. This is what the Steelers did in the Justin Fields era. Weren't bad. Averaged 20 points a game. Not great. 187, pass yards a game. 131 rush yards per game. A little under 300 total yards per game. 39% on third down with one Mr. Unlimited Russell Wilson. Basically everything, matter of fact, exactly everything has gone up. You've gone from 20 points to 31 points per game. You've gone from, what is that, around 187 pass yards per game? Massive increase to 271. Matter of fact, the rush yards per game, and that was with Justin Fields running the football effectively in his 6 starts. Rush yards per game has gone up as well to 158. Total yards per game has skyrocketed from 298 to 417. More on that in just a moment. Third down percentage has gone up slightly, 39% to 40%. The Steelers are converting at a higher rate on big downs. The thing with Russell Wilson is this. I think at this stage, and I've been critical of this, I used to be a big-time Russell Wilson advocate. Then the first year in Denver happened. I'm like, okay, I got to sell all my stock. But he has a solid year last year with the Broncos. The numbers were a touch misleading. I think it was like something like 25 touchdowns, 8 picks. My thing was, yeah, Sean Payton works with basically every quarterback. He's the quarterback whisperer. Of course, Russell was going to work. I was skeptical about whether or not that would be able to be replicated in Pittsburgh, PA, as good as an offensive coordinator as I think Arthur Smith is. Here's one thing we have to do with Russell Wilson now. Whether you think he's going to be the long-term solution for Pittsburgh or not, at least the rest of the season, and take the Steelers to new heights, I think it's fair to say I was wrong. We all were wrong. In that we've got to toss the first Denver year out. We got to toss it out. Like, especially when if I'm going to go on this show and over the course of the season until he's demoted, at least bash Nat Hackett the way I have and say that every offense that man's ever had has been terrible. Well, that's got to apply to Russell Wilson as well in the sense that, hey, Russell, we're seeing right now, clearly can still play, certainly more so than I thought he would. Nat Hackett fooled a lot of us for a lot of reasons. I had us thinking Russell Wilson was terrible. He's not terrible. Is he great? Doubt it. Terrible? No. So we got to throw that first Denver year out. For Pittsburgh, and spoiler, they're going to be on Bryson's best 10 in about 35 to 40 minutes. But the thing about the Steelers has always been pretty simple the last few years. It's, the defense is going to show up. TJ Watt is going to be a game wrecker. Mike Tomlin's going to get the best out of his group. But can the offense show up on a consistent basis? And the thing that I've always said, or at least that I said last season about Mike Tomlin, is that great coach, great at making halftime adjustments, amazing. Mike Tomlin might be, along with Andy Reid, the 2 best situational fourth quarter coaches in football. Way better than Kyle Shanahan. That's kind of his bugaboo. And I love Shanahan. I think better than McVay, better than Dan Campbell. So the best coaches in the league aren't as good situationally as Reid and Tomlin. But after last season was over, and a year where the Steelers somehow, some way, in large part because of Tomlin, won 10 games and made the playoffs with 3 backup quarterbacks, Pickett, Trubisky, Rudolph, my thing was, okay, coach, you're a first-ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt, no losing seasons, a Super Bowl champion, went to another one. But you haven't won a playoff game since 2016. I need to see some evolution to the modern NFL. You can still, like the Niners, by the way, have done it for years, where you can have a great defense and simultaneously be really innovative on offense. Like the Chiefs have done that the last couple of seasons. I need to see that. When Mike Tomlin hired Arthur Smith, who a fourth of the league, reports will tell you, 8 teams were going after Arthur Smith as their OC. When they got Arthur Smith, given his history with the Tennessee Titans as their OC, I'm like, oh, okay, that shows me a little bit of a culture shift. Getting a creative offensive play caller who made Ryan Tannehill, I think, a Pro Bowler. Like that's who could ever seen that coming? What will they do at the quarterback position? Will they draft somebody? Will they maybe wait and sign Dak Prescott next offseason, which I was imploring them heavily to do? That's obviously off the table. But they signed Russell Wilson, who's better than what they had last year for his flaws, at least perceived flaws at the time. And they get Justin Fields, who certainly has a higher upside than the guys they had the last couple of seasons. Here's what I'll say. There are folks I'm seeing out there that are putting the Steelers as up there as one of the 2 or 3 biggest threats to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not ready to go there yet. Because you got to remember, last 3 wins, Raiders, Jets, Giants, all 3 awful teams. Each team has their strength. The Raiders have Brock Bowers. The Jets, actually, I don't think they have a strength. The Giants have a great defensive line. But you're supposed to win those games. And that was kind of the thing for the Steelers, is that these first 8 to 9 games, Washington's better than we thought coming into the season. But it was like, you got to go 6-2, 7-1 to start the year, because the end of your schedule is brutal. You got Kansas City. You got the Houston Texans, I believe. I think they've got Houston. You've got the Philadelphia Eagles, who are tough offensively. Like, you've got Cincinnati twice, Baltimore twice. It's a tough closing schedule for the Pittsburgh Steelers. How can they get the job done? And this is the first time this is insane, folks, since 2018 that the Steelers have gone 2 straight games of over 400 yards of offense. 2 straight games, 400 yards of offense. Has not happened since the 2018 season. If this offense is able to sustain Russell Wilson, who, again, I had questions about, coming out of Denver. Here's what you know about Russ. And I thought this was gone. I was wrong. Russell still got the deep ball. Russell in his prime in Seattle had the most beautiful deep ball. They call it the moon ball in the NFL. Just that crazy arc. I mean, dropping right down to the breadbasket of the wide receiver. He still got that. To George Pickens, to Calvin Austin. He still got that in his game. Najee Harris is running like a man on a mission right now. Best 3-game stretch of his career. Jalen Warren, if Najee Harris is thunder, Jalen Warren is lightning. Quick, good feet, can catch passes out of the backfield. Pat Freiermuth is a good red zone guy and third down guy. Now, the Steelers, could I see us trading for another receiver to go opposite Pickens at the deadline, especially with the injuries to Roman Wilson? Yeah. Cooper Kupp's off the table. I think the Rams are going to go on a little bit of a run here, but there's plenty of guys out there potentially. Adam Thielen, I wouldn't be against trading for him with the Carolina Panthers. Again, good veteran player, still productive. He's just in a bad situation with Carolina. But the Steelers have no question exceeded my expectations. If you'd have told me they'd be 6-2 at this point, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't. There's a lot of winnable games the first part of their schedule. Now there's some tough ones, Atlanta, the Chargers, etc. But if you told me they'd be 6-2 and have a very real offense. Elite, not ready to go there yet. Real, productive, makes other teams, makes other defensive coordinators sweat a little bit. Yeah, that has surprised me. It would have. I think Arthur Smith is going to improve the offense, not to this level. And so, listen. And by the way, it's 26-18. Do the math. It should have been 34-18. Now you could say the Giants should have cashed in on their red zone opportunities, but the Steelers had 2 touchdowns wiped off the board. George Pickens caught a touchdown, got wiped out because Broderick Jones again committed a brutal penalty, and then George Pickens caught looks like another touchdown and just didn't get his foot down. He's got to be better about getting that second foot in bounds. But this is they're top of the AFC North, second about toughest division of football in my estimation to the NFC North. Pittsburgh's a real team. They have an elite coach. They have an excellent offensive coordinator. They're, by the way, great on special teams. Great kicker, kick returners, punt blocks, kick blocks. And then offensively, you've got a deep ball guy in George Pickens who is, I've said for years, special with the football in his hands. Great running game. I still have questions about that O-line. And I still have questions if Russell Wilson is going to be able to sustain this. But if he does, my Steelers might very well be a Super Bowl contender. Now, I'll say this. I will bet against Patrick Mahomes when he gives me a reason to. He's yet to give me a reason to. Man ain't lost in Santa came to town last year. So, but I think the Steelers are in great positioning. AFC North is very, very much on the table. It's Steelers, Baltimore. I don't think Cincinnati can catch up to us or the Ravens, but Pittsburgh's in a really good spot right now. There's no question about it. And listen, this is Russell Wilson at this stage of his career can't carry you the way he could Seattle in between like the 2016 and 20 seasons, but give him a good defense. I mean, we know Russell, and I said this when he was signed, as skeptical as I was, he was cheap, and he's way better than what we had last year, which ain't saying much, but he was. So I feel great about the Steelers moving forward. Going back to, because Parnell had a comment, I'll pull it back up here. Shout out to Parnell Sports PSP podcast, which is blowing up right now. By the way, he is a happy Washington Commanders fan today. He has thoughts on Anthony Richardson being benched. Here's my thing, is that Anthony Richardson, when he came into the NFL, was the classic, almost prototypical raw quarterback talent. Now, I wasn't crazy about him coming out. Now, I loved his character. From what I heard from everybody who met with him during the Combine in Indianapolis, obviously the city ended up drafting him, loved everything I heard. High character kid. But generally speaking, Josh Allen's kind of an outlier to this rule. When you come out of college inaccurate, you usually stay inaccurate. Like that's not something that can just be taught. You can get better at it. You can improve at it. you sort of either have it or you don't. And the thing with Richardson is I've compared. I said he's like a 199, 200 hitter who has like 20 to 25 home runs. Like Anthony Richardson will hit you on the 70-yard touchdown over the top. He misses layups. And by the way, if Anthony Richardson were playing for the Patriots, I would be ripping New England right now because I'm like, what? I don't know if your coach is good. I know your roster isn't good. You've got a ways to go. That's not the case with the Colts, folks. That's a good roster. That's a really offensively. Jonathan Taylor. You've got Josh Downs. You've got Michael Pittman Jr. You've got some really nice pieces there. And by the way, Shane Steichen, who turned Jalen Hurts into an MVP candidate. Gardner Minshew's been god-awful this year at the Raiders. Gardner Minshew was really good last year with Shane Steichen. So the coach is there. The weapons are there. 10 for 32. And Joe Flacco, then you see Joe Flacco, and Joe Flacco, old man Joe, is slinging out there. So I'm generally, I tend to be like, hey, give him an opportunity and let him play it out. We have zero evidence thus far in Anthony Richardson's career. Going back to college, that he's good. Athletic, yes. Physically gifted, no question. High character, yes. Although I think the whole thing about him tapping out because he was tired was not great. But at the end of the day, this is he's just, it's pretty simple. He's just not accurate. And he's got the pieces around him to be, and he darn sure is the coach to be. I think Steichen is tremendous. Outstanding. So I don't have an issue with him. Patriots, I would, because the structure isn't there. The structure is there with the Colts. Like if the Patriots decided, Jacoby Brissett, wins the game against the Jets, and let's say Brissett, I don't know, I think the Patriots, I don't know who they have this week. Let's say Brissett plays well again this week. I'd still say, I don't care. Go back to Drake May, because that's your future. B, we got to see what the kid has. He's under adverse circumstances. Just get him out there. New England's not terribly talented, so we know it's not all the blame for any shortcomings, which hasn't been that many so far, is on him. Whereas with the Colts, I mean, I don't care if you have the worst receiving core in football. 10 for 32 is unacceptable. That's brutal. Absolutely brutal. All right. What do we got next? Oh, World Series. So take the terrible towel off. Good chance it will come back out in Bryce's best 10 because, again, spoiler alert, the Steelers are on Bryson's best 10. I did want to talk about this, though. So the World Series has been going on. The ratings, as I kind of figured, I think as most people figured, have been exponentially higher than the last few years. Certainly last year when baseball struggled to get 5 million people to watch a World Series game. This year, I think Game 2 topped out at like 16 million people. So, listen, I picked the Dodgers to win the series in 6. They had the better lineup. I trusted their bullpen a lot more than New York's, even though New York's has actually been much better than I thought it'd be. The issue in the series through the first 3 games was because everybody's talking about, the starting pitching for the Dodgers has been better than the Yankees. Yes, but the Dodgers, 2 runs through the first 9 innings of game 1 before, obviously, the Freddie Freeman walk-off. 4 runs in games 2, 3, and then 4. And so it's not like the Dodgers offense has exploded through the first part of the series, because it really hasn't. It was the fact the Yankees bats were non-existent. Didn't do it. And Aaron Judge had 1 hit through the first 3 games, got 1 toward the end of game 4. Does that get him in a rhythm? We'll see. But listen, my thing was this or at least my thing is this moving forward. So in World Series history, and this is a shocking stat, so we know to toot my own Red Sox, my Red Sox horn right now, and I can't wait to watch that documentary when I get some time to do it on Netflix about the 04 Red Sox. 04 Red Sox, the only team in the history of Major League Baseball to come back from a 3-0 deficit to win a best-of-7 series. No teams, of course, done it in the World Series, but even more shocking, I should say more shocking, because I don't think that's a shocking stat. The most shocking aspect about the 3-0 deficits in the World Series, listen to this, folks. No team down 3-0 in the World Series has ever forced a game 6. So if the Yankees win tonight, obviously they don't win the series. They still got to win 2 more games. Yankees win tonight, that's history in and of itself. So, I mean, listen, they don't hang a lot of banners there lately. Listen, maybe they can hang that. But I will just say on the outset, I think New York's going to win tonight. Honestly, I do. Garrett Cole's on the mound. I think Aaron Boone taking Garrett Cole out of game 1 was part of the reason why we're even here to begin with. Because people talk about, Nestor Cortez pitching in the 10th inning, and folks were like, well, he didn't really have much to work with his bullpen. Yeah, he didn't have much to work with his bullpen because he took a red-hot pitch route. By the way, only 88 pitches in through 6 innings. So I thought if you want to bash him intentionally walking Mookie in the 10th inning, putting Nestor Cortez in, who hasn't pitched a month, the Mookie thing I actually think was a good call. The Cortez thing wasn't. But to me, the worst decision was taking out Garrett Cole as early as he did. So I actually think that he's going to play well in this game, or pitch well in this game. The Dodgers' offense has not exploded really at all in this series. Again, their series high 6 runs. 4 of them came on one swing, okay, in the 10th inning. With that said, they're not winning this series. Now, listen, I understand. By the way, I don't even fault folks on some of these shows talking about how this could the Yankees be the first team to do it. I understand. It's a fun story. And by the way, there's a scenario in which it happens. But the scenario for it to happen would have to include, obviously, coming back for 3-0 has never been done before. But in order to get there, things that you would think would happen just aren't happening for the Yankees. For example, Aaron Judge, I saw this stat today. We know Aaron Judge has been James Harden in the playoffs, where he's MVP in the regular season, all-time great, and then postseason, he's a disaster. Aaron Judge, think about this, is an insane stat. Think about the last time Aaron Judge had a multi-hit game in the postseason. You want to know when that was? 2019. A half decade ago. For context, he obviously was in the playoffs in 19. He was in the playoffs in 20, in 21. And then, I think that 22 they made it. And then this year they made it because they missed the playoffs last year. No multi-game hits for Aaron Judge, or multi-hit games for Aaron Judge in between 2020 and now. And there's a narrative going on right now, like, hey, why are we giving Shohei Ohtani same amount of blame that we're giving Aaron Judge for playing poorly in the World Series? Because if you look at their numbers, shout out to Alfred for making this graphic, they're basically the same guy. Same batting average, 133, which is a disaster. Same amount of hits, 2. No home runs for either. Judge actually has 1 RBI to Ohtani's 0. Both have been walked twice, although Judge has struck out 3 more times than Shohei. Everybody's talking about, oh, why aren't we giving Shohei the Are you watching Shohei since game 2 after he hurt that shoulder? He's run the field, and he's hurting. That's number 1. Number 2, I don't know. Look at the numbers. Shohei's been infinitely better than Judge in the playoffs. In the playoffs this year, Ohtani batting 246, Judge 152. Ohtani 14 hits, that's double Judge. Exactly. Ohtani 3 home runs, Judge 2 home runs. Ohtani 10 RBIs, Judge 7. Ohtani's been walked 4 more times than Judge and has struck out only 1 time more in more games played. And number 3, let's see. It's his first postseason. Now, by the way, does that mean we shouldn't criticize Shohei Ohtani when he is playing well and poorly in the World Series? Sure. Now, again, I think we should also use our eyeballs and see that guy's not close. If this was the regular season, if this were May, this guy, I'm no doctor. I don't even know the severity of the injury. Out 2 weeks, 3. He'd have to get that shoulder. He may have surgery in the offseason for all I know. So we should use our common sense of what we're watching with the game. But this is Judge's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is his 7th postseason. Ohtani's first. The entire narrative, and it finally built this season. I've been saying it for years about Judge, like, where's the big postseason moment? I've never witnessed it. Judge has a history, a resume of being bad in the postseason. Ohtani has actually been really good in this year's playoffs, was unreal with runners in scoring position in the division series and the championship series against the Padres and then against the Mets. So those things have to be taken into account as it relates to how we're viewing these 2 particular players. So, like, the rest of the series, either way, there's way more pressure on Judge. Infinitely more pressure on Aaron Judge. Now, next year, different conversation. If Ohtani has a ring, maybe, but next year it's a different conversation. If Shohei, assuming he's healthier than he is now, is beat up, it plays poorly, we got to start having that conversation. But listen, I actually think the Yankees are going to win tonight, which, again, that would go against history. No team down 3-0 is forced to game 6. But I think people are criticizing Dave Roberts and how he used the bullpen last night. I didn't have an issue with it at all. And I think you saw Dave Roberts. If you guys didn't see his press conference, he seems pretty relaxed, as he should be. He's got the better team. He's got the better lineup. Frankly, the bullpen it's been mostly dead even, and my rotation's been better than theirs, other than Garrett Cole in game 1. So, listen, I think the Yankees win tonight. I don't see them losing Garrett Cole's start if he replicates what he did in game 1, and if Aaron Boone keeps him in longer, Dodgers going to win. Listen, pick integrity. I said Dodgers in 6. I'm going to stick to that. Yankees win tonight. Dodgers wrap it up on Friday night in Dodger Stadium on November 1st. But, yeah, if the Dodgers wrap it up tonight, who knows? But, by the way, too, I did want to say this as well. Because, Volpe, the local kid, shortstop, hits the grand slam to give the Yankees the lead, which they would never relinquish. And that was a big story, and Judge finally getting a hit. But one of the biggest stories was, we could show you the footage here, Mookie Betts going up and catching a fly ball, and this dope, matter of fact, as it turns out, 2 dopes sitting there in the front row, Yankee fans, trying to rip the ball out of Mookie's glove. The first guy actually succeeds. By the way, the other guy next to him grabs Mookie's right hand, his wrist. The reason I bring this up and show this is these Yankee fans are clowns. I know some good Yankee fans out there. Shout out John Rivera. Great friend of mine. I've got friends that are Yankees fans. Majority of them clowns. Point is, I have been stunned at how many folks I'm seeing in the national media today. They're like, oh, come on. They're just you can be passionate. But again, to me, that's the equivalent. Remember when Kyle Lowry, and again, there was some racial undertones, racial language used. Remember Kyle Lowry in the finals about 5 years ago when the Raptors played my Warriors, went and dove for a ball that was going out of bounds, and he got shoved. By the way, the guy next to him said something. I can't remember if it was racial or it was clearly the guy said a nasty, nasty insult. NBA ended up punishing what ended up being a part owner for the Warriors. But I think we were all in collective, what a jerk, shoving an athlete in the middle of action or at all. You don't just shove a person. Trying to strip the baseball out of Mookie's glove, and the other guy's trying to grab his wrist. He could actually hurt Mookie. So it does go back to, and this is a bigger conversation, but it does go back to, at times there are some, and people are like, they were out, they were drunk. Listen. The great Shannon Sharp always says there's 3 kinds of people that'll tell you the truth: kids, drunks, and angry people. And alcohol's truth serum. And so you put alcohol in those guys, and I imagine they were drunk. They're like, hey, Mookie Betts over here, let's, in the moment, try and rip the ball out and act like a dope. And the other guy, let me grab Mookie's right hand. I'm not really sure why. I may hurt him. Maybe this will help our team win the series. It's not. Shocked at how much sympathy I'm seeing for these morons, utter morons, doing what they did. It's disgusting. Listen, people are gonna act like I'm being all high and mighty, but ask yourself, you're a Mookie spot. If you're playing a professional sport, you want a fan touching you? Come on, that to me is completely off limits. I understand if a guy, like a Derek Jeter back in the day, right? Goes into the stands. That's different. That's the athlete trying to make a play, and you just end up tangled up with the fans. But a fan actively trying to grab an athlete, touch an athlete, in these cases, it looked like they were actively, at least the second guy, which I almost think was worse than the first, trying to appear to hurt Mookie Betts. And Mookie was cool about it after the game. Kudos to him. But I thought it was clown behavior. Clown behavior at its absolute peak. Anyways, the game 5 tonight, I got the Yankees. Dodgers in 6 was my prediction before the series started. The Yankees will win the Garrett Cole start tonight. And listen, there'll be a lot of talk, a lot of pressure. Oh, can the Yankees do it? No, they're not doing it. They're not winning 2 games in LA when the Dodgers have an opportunity to close out a championship. That's not going to happen. Freddie Freeman's certainly going to let that happen. First player in baseball history, 4 straight games start the World Series with a home run. And then you go back to his last World Series in 2021 with Atlanta. 6, this is amazing, 6 straight games for Freddie Freeman with a World Series home run. It's absolutely incredible. Listen, he's the odds-on favorite, no question, to be World Series MVP. But listen, I'll say this. If the Yankees lose tonight, I won't be devastated. I had a nice little celebration in store for today's show. Had New York gotten swept last night, which would have been kind of funny. But it will have to wait. But it will come out because, yeah, Yankees going to come back from 3-0. What are you, the 0-4 Red Sox? Hey, well, you got Big Papi on the team. You got Dave Roberts. No, Dave Roberts going to get you, bro, as a manager. And by and large, we've been critical of Dave Roberts over the years. Push the right buttons in this series. All right, we'll be back after a 1-minute break for a very, very interesting and insightful, at least I hope so, Carving Up the Context. Be back in a minute on Carving It Up Live. Be back in just a minute. Welcome back to Carving It Up Live. So up next, on a segment we do every Wednesday, Carving Up the Context. Basically what we do is we take a story that is in the national focus and attention, and we try and go just a little bit deeper into the heart of the matter, so to speak. Carving Up the Context, obviously playing off the name of the show, Carving It Up. And this next segment of this, of Carving Up the Context is a story that most are shying away from in a major way. Probably just because it's uncomfortable. But if you know anything about me, you know anything about this show, I dive right into it, baby. I don't care. No matter who it makes uncomfortable, let's go right into it. Let's talk about it. Because that's what we do in this segment, Carving Up the Context. Part of the reason this segment even exists. So, the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes primetime, Deion Sanders, says, "Give me my theme music." This week's edition of Carving Up the Context, we're going to be talking about Nick Bosa, superstar pass rusher for the San Francisco 49ers, who at the end of the game, after the 49ers beat the Cowboys 30-24 on Sunday Night Football, Melissa Stark for NBC, I'm sure everybody's seen it. She's interviewing Brock Purdy, the kid Garindo, I think the young running back for the 49ers who had a great game, and George Kittle, all of which were excellent in the win over Dallas. And right as she's asking Brock a question, we have the photo right here. Nick Bosa comes in between Stark and Purdy and is flashing a white Make America Great Again hat. We can actually make that a little bit closer right there. See Nick Bosa right there with his Make America Great Again hat. And I was thinking about this. There's a number of angles that I feel like most aren't on, by the way, on both sides of the political spectrum, are either avoiding intentionally or just not touching on, because to me it feels pretty darn obvious. Many of the things surrounding this. Number one, and I want to say this in the outset, I want to be abundantly clear. I think my history on this show would tell you, in the times that I have talked about the former president, let's put it this way, I'm not a fan about basically anything that man stands for, to put it mildly. With that said, in and of itself, we're just talking about specifically, we'll get into the larger aspects of it and what Nick Bosa said afterwards, but just the act of him wearing the hat, disagree with it, but I will not in any way, shape, or form, it would be hypocritical if I'm consistent on previous takes I've had about politics and sports, if I'm going to be consistent with the United States Constitution and the First Amendment, is if Nick Bosa wants to wear that hat, disagree with it, but he has a right to do it. He has a right to do it in this country. So I want to make myself abundantly clear before people jump on me for that, because I don't want anybody taking stuff out of context, because this is Carving Up the Context. Let's take a listen to what Nick Bosa said after the game, because I found it strange and vehemently inconsistent, not just with what he says and believes, but with what previous narratives on the political spectrum have been about this very subject in the last really 8 years. Nick Bosa on why he wore the hat.
Some discussion, you had a hat on that was not the hat you're currently wearing in the post game. Why did you take that opportunity to make what appeared to be a political statement?
I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I think it's an important time.
I mean, I realize you didn't say you want to talk too much about it, but have you been tempted in the past to kind of wave your
No, I mean, it's definitely a little easier nowadays, but no, I don't feel too inclined to do that.
easier because
Just a different climate.
I don't want to bang on the reporter, but my follow-up, if I were asking the question after he said it's an important time, would have been, why do you feel it's an important time? That's well, the one thing both sides of the aisle agree on in this election, that is, it is a very important election and it is a very important time. And so I would have liked to have heard, as the consumer, as somebody listening to this interview, certainly as the person asking the question, Nick Bosa, is why do you feel this is an important time? Nonetheless. So there's been a lot of parallels drawn between him, Nick Bosa, and a former 49ers player, Colin Kaepernick, who obviously knelt during the national anthem in 2016 in protest of police brutality, is that there's been a parallel. Kaepernick's kicked out of the league, Nick Bosa's not. Well, first of all, listen, Cap was blackballed. Cap should have still been in the National Football League. He was a good backup quarterback. Starter, no. Good backup, no question, could have provided value. Nick Bosa is one of the 5 best passers in the world. But with that said, here's something that is objectively true, and both sides probably going to get pissed off at me saying this. Don't care. Kneeling during the national anthem, wearing a MAGA hat. Both are in their own ways extremely provocative. Both in their own ways pisses off the other side in a major, major way. I do think it is somewhat noteworthy that when Cap did the provocative move of kneeling during the national anthem, that he was asked, rightfully so, by the way, why did you do this? What prompted you to take a countercultural stance during the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner? And Cap, agree with his position or not, there's no question why he did it, or there's no misinterpreting of why Colin Kaepernick knelt during the national anthem. He said explicitly, police brutality, there's young black men and women getting killed in the streets by cops, all these different things. And Cap elaborated on it extensively, as did Malcolm Jenkins, as did Kenny Stills, as did other athletes, even white athletes like Chris Long, elaborated on this. And so my thing is, if you're willing, Nick Bosa seemed oddly uncomfortable in that post-game press conference. My thing is this: if you're going to, by the way, I've always said this. I'm different than some folks that want athletes, because these people do exist. Anytime something major in the political world happens, people are, and this isn't just the case with athletes, but with high-profile celebrities, what do you have to say about it? But in some cases, A, maybe I'm not educated about this. B, maybe I won't have the right words to say. And C, even if I do have the right words to say, maybe now's not the time. I can contribute down the road because I'm an American citizen, and my opinion counts the way everybody else's counts. And so I'm not saying Nick Bosa in the middle of election, I need to hear his opinion. That said, you wore that. And by the way, Nick Bosa is not the only Trump supporter in the NFL. That's putting it mildly. There are folks in the NFL that are going to vote for Trump or are going to vote for Kamala Harris that are not going to disclose that. So I'm not going to demand to hear what they have to say. But if you are going to disclose that, I think it's incumbent upon you as a public figure, regardless of who you're voting for, to disclose why. And also, too, is that, and the one thing I really wanted to hammer home, I said back in 2020, this is before I even was on YouTube, was during the George Floyd protests. I said, folks, whether you like it or not, it is true. Stick to sports is dead. Not only is it dead, or in some ways, part of the reason that it is we know, and I have been on this for years on this show, athletes being outspoken about politics, be it Nick Bosa, Harrison Butker on one side, be it Steph Curry or LeBron James on the other, does not impact ratings. It never has. The history I've gone through, I won't go into specifically. I've done segments on this in the past. Many of carving out the context segments about this. I've talked about it at length. Matter of fact, I actually did a video about why the NFL ratings were going to come down this year, and they have. I was right on that. But those that are, let's put it this way. Those that have said, hey, Nick Bosa are trying to cancel the man for his political beliefs. I mean, this guy's courageous. This guy disagree with the stance, going to defend his right to do it. Be nice if you gave that same energy to athletes that are talking about things that you don't agree with. Shut up and dribble. Remember, that was the thing. Nobody wants to hear what athletes have to say unless they agree with me. Conor McGregor, Nick Bosa, Harrison Butker, can be anybody. If they agree with me, hey, good on you, my man. You are really standing up against the... but if they disagree with you, then it's a problem. Then it's shut up and dribble. Then it's, no, you stay in your place. You are here. I am here to watch you bounce a ball. You serve no other value than to do that. When, of course, they have the same rights as those that agree with you as it pertains to speaking their mind, speaking their opinion in this country. That's the beauty of the United States of America. That's the beauty of a democracy, as we all get a say. And by the way, I am big on the idea that make sure you're educated ahead of time. Maybe Nick Bosa isn't, and that's why he didn't say anything. Because agree or disagree with Cap's stance, he didn't leave a doubt as to why he did what he did. Again, Cap, Bosa, kneeling, MAGA hat. In different ways, provocative stances. We asked Cap, rightfully so, by the way, why he did what he did. And pressed him on it. As well as Malcolm Jenkins, Kenny Stills, and others. How come we can't do that with Nick Bosa? Now, again, I'm not doing this to bang on the reporter. I don't want to sound like I'm doing that at all. Like, it's an awkward situation. He probably didn't go to Levi State and think he was going to ask a question about Donald Trump after the game. But I would like the consistency and because my thing is this, either, and I disagree with one stance, but if you're consistent, I respect it. Either it's, I don't want to hear anything whatsoever from any athlete on any political position, even if they agree with me. I'm not going to go on my show and disingenuously call them courageous, while folks on the other side who vehemently disagree with my position, my stance, my political views, I say need to shut up and dribble. I say need to stick to sports and objectively falsely claim that them speaking about politics impacts sports viewership in any way, shape, and form. I'll go on this briefly. Ratings came down in 2016 for the NFL and for sports, just like it did in 2020, just like with the World Series being the exception, just like it is in 2024. Oh, but just like it did in 2012, when there was no kneeling during the national anthem, when there was no athletes really weren't politically active in 2012, and the rating still came down because it's a presidential election year, as has been the case throughout, again, the last 12 years. It's not that people have quit on sports. It's not that people act like they're done watching sports because an athlete came out against their position. That's not true. Every 4 years, 12, 16, 20, and as we sit here today, 24, without fail, ratings tick down. To varying degrees, but they tick down. Athletes can say nothing. They can say a lot. They're still going to go down. The ratings are. And come 2025, just like 2021 and 17 and 13, then they go right back up. I want to, again, make myself abundantly clear. I could not disagree with Donald Trump's stances on just about, as a matter of fact, not just about, essentially everything that he's ever stood for. Disagree with all of it vehemently. But I defend Nick Bosa's right to wear that hat. I wish he would have explained it more. I wish he would have impressed more to explain it more, as we asked other athletes who took countercultural or provocative stances to do so. I think that's a more than fair stance and question to ask and take. But if we're going to praise Nick Bosa, I'm not saying, by the way, you have to praise people when you disagree with them, because I don't praise people when I disagree with them. Just say, disagree. It's a right to say it so as an American citizen. That's what makes us a great country. It's what makes us the greatest country in the world, is that we do get to voice those different opinions. And by the way, the left has the thing that I would criticize the left on. This is why I'm an independent, folks. The thing I've criticized the left on is we're open to, like, conservatives are we know throughout the last few years, and heck, I think even prior to Trump, have kind of been to a degree, the bro club, good old boys club, only ideas we want is ours. Whereas liberals have, and they've gotten themselves in trouble by doing this, we want any and all opinions unless they come from maybe slightly right of the political spectrum. That's where liberals have gotten themselves in trouble. So the ones that are ripping Bosa to shreds, but praise again Steve Kerr for endorsing Kamala Harris as these are great patriotic Americans. Well, we do have to be consistent. So this week's edition, carving out the context. Hate everything Trump stands for. Honest to God, I do. But Nick Bosa is well within his right to wear that hat, but he should have been asked to elaborate on it more. If he's going to take that stance, I think it is incumbent upon you. Okay, why did you take this stance? We asked the other side to do that. And also, the stick to sports crowd. Would you guys just shut up? I'm going to name drop something. Clay Travis. Zip it. By the way, Clay Travis, for those that may not know, used to be the gambling guy on one of the gambling experts on Fox Sports. And he was, by the way, he was terrible. But he used to all the time talk about stick to sports. Here's what Clay Travis said about Nick Bosa. Here's Nick Bosa closer up at his MAGA hat. The left-wing sports media is going to lose its mind over this. Love it. Clay Travis, 3 years ago. Because somebody tweeted, those who want politics out of sports don't really want that. They want politics they don't agree with out of sports. Clay Travis retweet. This isn't remotely true. Most sports fans watch politics to escape politics. Far left-wing politics have taken over sports, or overtaken sports rather, and most sports media cheer this because sports media are overwhelmingly far left-wing. But it's killing sports, and ironically, many sports media jobs too. Didn't hear that take on Bosa. But again, Clay Travis being the disingenuous individual that he is, I don't expect anything more from him. And by the way, it's not because he's a conservative. It's because he's disingenuous and he's fake and he's not consistent. The stick to sports guy took Rush Limbaugh's job. Interesting. Just want to get that out there. I think that guy's a clown. See what we got. Let's see. Jeff, who's a 49ers fan, by the way. I have to disagree with Sam. Bosa should have elaborated more on why he liked Trump when asked, because anybody allowed to vote. There are millions of idiots who vote every year that don't know politics, and I'm one of those idiots. Well, listen, the thing is the reason I say that, and again, Jeff, I see in the comments, you just now joined the segment, so you didn't see the beginning, is that my thing is I don't want Nick Bosa to elaborate, or any athlete to elaborate on their support of a candidate if they're not going to open, like Patrick Mahomes. Like Patrick Mahomes has openly, I'm not saying anything now, his wife, different story, but Patrick Mahomes has not said jack. All he said is get out there and vote, which, by the way, get out there and vote. If you don't vote, you can't, you can't complain. Let's do the the G-rated version. Can't complain. But if you're going to open yourself up like that, Kaepernick kneeling, Bosa wearing the MAGA hat, both countercultural, both extremely controversial and provocative. It's fair to ask why. It's completely fair. That's not to say you have to agree with them. That's not to say you're going to sit up there and say, oh, you can't do what you're doing anymore, although the NFL did kind of tell that to Cap, or NFL owners did. But end of the day, it is all I want on this topic is consistency. Disagree with Bosa, I will absolutely defend his right to do that, just like I'll defend Steph Curry's right to endorse Kamala Harris. Just like I'll endorse again, I didn't vibe with the tone and the rhetoric of what Harrison Butker said, but I'll defend his right to say it. Just like I'll defend LeBron James and Steve Kerr. And also too, I cannot emphasize this any more than I am right now. I cannot emphasize this enough. A Bosa, a Butker, a Curry, a LeBron, any stance that they take does not impact ratings. And anybody like Clay Travis who says that they do are lying. Full on, flat out lying to their audience. And so whenever I hear people say that, I'm like, oh, you probably heard that from a disingenuous guy who used to do a sports show, said stick to sports, then did a political show. But, that's not my business. I don't even know why I brought that up. Either way. And again, too, and I'll I'll say this, because if I, you know what, how about this? How about we do this? A little exercise. Then we'll do Bryson's best 10 in a few minutes. Because if I'm going to go on here, and let's just say I'm not as famous as Nick Bosa, that's putting it mildly. But if I'm going to go on here and ask Nick Bosa to elaborate on his position and why he feels the way that he feels, maybe I should be consistent. Maybe I should be. So I'll just be totally 100% transparent. And you can turn off my show. You can block me on social media. You can do whatever. Because the thing that I always try to pride myself on, it's why I even did this topic to begin with, is full-blown transparency on Carving It Up Live. To me, I am failing the audience. I can't look myself in the mirror if I come on here and not even just lie to you guys, but don't give you all of myself and how I actually feel about something if I'm pulling back. So tomorrow morning, and I live in a very red state, a state that is going to go for Donald Trump. Let's put it that way. Tennessee's going to go for Trump. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to be voting for Kamala Harris. And the reason why I'm going to be voting for Kamala Harris is a number of reasons. First and foremost is that for the failings of the Biden administration as it relates, in particular to me, the biggest area where they got it wrong was the southern border. In the sense that it was a clear crisis going down there, and they really didn't address it up until this year when Trump called the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and other top Republicans to block the bill in Congress. That would have provided more troops and who knows, maybe stabilize the border in a major way. And I think that's the one area where I feel like Kamala and President Biden have not taken accountability for the failings there. With that said, and that to me is their biggest sin, it pales in comparison to things that we hold very basic to being American citizens and to loving this country. Not only will Donald Trump still not say that he lost that election, which he of course did. There's not a shred of evidence that anybody has pulled out, that any judge has pulled out, that has said that he lost the election or that he won the election or even had a chance to win the election. But he did incite. This is objectively true. We saw it on television. Like when I hear Trump and his people say, "Oh, this isn't actually what happened," I'm like, guys, I saw it. And by the way, the Democrats did this too. I'm probably going to a dark hole here, or not dark hole, but a rabbit hole. But the Democrats did this too with Biden, and God bless Biden. But they were like, "Oh, Biden's as sharp as ever." I'm like, guys, I have eyeballs and I have ears. He's clearly declining. Can we at least be honest about that? Can we not lie to the American people about that? Likewise for the Republicans, stop lying to me and said Trump didn't start January 6th. Stop. He literally said, he tweeted a month before, be there, will be wild. And then he says, you got to take this country back by strength, or you lose your country. And then he tweets after Mike Pence didn't do something that he literally cannot do under the Constitution, which is overturn the election as the vice president. He tweets, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to basically turn the election in my favor, which he literally cannot do under the law. And I mean, there was a bounty for Pence's head that day, as well as for other people. And so that denying elections, by the way, this has not gotten enough press. 2 years ago, when there was all the criminal indictments of Trump, he once on his Truth Social account openly called for the United States Constitution to be eliminated. And last time I checked, as a guy who studied presidential history longer than I've been a fan of sports, that presidential oath, it says toward the end, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Seems like a bit of a conflict of interest if a guy's going to say, hey, let's get rid of it, and then, oh, actually, no, I'm going to preserve, protect, and defend it. And so, listen, and not only that, the Madison Square Garden, Trump's had some gross rallies. He talks about the enemy from within, like how Democrats and basically anybody who doesn't agree with him is the enemy from within. They're more dangerous than China and Russia and our foreign adversaries. This is that MSG rally with the comedian by the way, he got the most play, but there are folks that call Kamala the Antichrist. There were some insanely racist jokes, comments, whatever you want to call them, about Puerto Ricans, Jews, black people. There were some misogynistic things said. I mean, it is, the Democrats are trying to destroy that. Okay, I'm a person, folks, that's an independent, does not align with the Democrat or Republican Party, but socially I lean left. I've been transparent about that. I'm not trying to destroy the country. People who believe like me are not trying to destroy the country. People who are conservative, just average, everyday conservatives, are not trying to destroy the country. They're not. They're just trying to go about their everyday life, being the best that they can be, and doing what they can, certainly by voting, to ensure we have the best nation that we can possibly be. That guy don't want that. That guy's scared. That guy is... I'll put it this way because I said it. This is the last thing I'll say. We'll go to Bryson's best 10. I didn't think the segment would last as long as it did, but I think it's important to point this out. Because I had a prediction. I cut a lot of flack for this when I said this, even from people in my personal life that were like, I cannot believe that, like that you're so wrong on this. And I've not moved. Pick integrity, right? I preached that. Back in June, when I was talking about how Trump became the first president in history, became a convicted felon, I said then, that was when Biden was the nominee, and Biden, I don't believe in polls, but Biden was not doing well in the polls at all. And I said on the show back in June, and I'll repeat it in October, day before Halloween. And I want to make sure that I be clear about this. Get out there and vote. With that said, I think that it is an impossibility for one Donald Trump to win this presidential election. He has done nothing over the last few months but drive people away. The Nikki Haley voter, and she took a big chunk out of him in the Republican primaries. Even when she was out of the race, by the way, she got a substantial amount of votes relative to the fact that she wasn't even in the race. That's a big voting block that could decide this election, swing states such as Pennsylvania. He takes a shot at Nikki Haley every chance he gets. You think that's going to make her voters like him? You think him saying America is, by the way, America's a dumping ground, a garbage can? Ronald Reagan, the bastion of conservatism, said we are the city on the hill. And by the way, like my thing with Reagan was, and I wasn't around for Reagan, obviously, but my thing with Reagan and studying him over the years is like the bottom line on its face, his message is great. Like we're the greatest country with all these things. But there was a certain aspect of Reaganism that was at times turned a blind eye to our problems at home, which to me, again, two things could be true. You can simultaneously say, hey, we've got a great country, best in the world. We still have problems you have to address. That was the only big flaw I saw in his rhetoric. But at the same time, give me that. Give me, we're the city on the hill. Then we're a dumping ground. That doesn't sound like and I hear these, the biggest patriot, I don't know. I've never heard somebody call himself a patriot and say that America's a garbage can, a dumping ground. I found that not horribly patriotic. I mean, I don't know. If I love my family, I don't think I'd say they were a garbage can. If I loved my family, I wouldn't say that, but I don't know. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe there's different ways to love. I don't know. But I just wanted to clarify that. Because listen, if I'm going to get on Nick Bosa, then I got to be consistent myself. So, that doesn't all count for carving up the context. I just wanted to, but it's our rights as American citizens to give our opinions. So I'm not going to rip. I disagree with Bosa. I wish he would elaborate more. I'm not going to criticize him for wearing the MAGA hat, just like I'm not going to criticize those who support Kamala Harris. That simple. All right. Without further ado, let's get into it. Bryson's best 10. There's been a lot of shakeup in the National Football League. There was a ton of upsets in Week 8 coming into this week. And by the way, a team that's going to be on Bryson's best 10 plays tomorrow night. I'm sure you can guess who that is. It's not the terrible team in New Jersey. But let's get the background music going on right now. Bryson's best 10, Week 9. Here we go. We got it, at number 10. Believe it or not, after winning, they actually drop a spot. It is the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are the 10th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, again, you said, Bryson, how the heck did they drop? It's pretty simple, folks. Is that if not for, and I give Jaden Daniels and everybody credit for this happening, but that was a miracle play. They don't call it a Hail Mary for no reason. Roger Staubach, the originator of that pass, said, who obviously Staubach's Catholic, I closed my eyes and said a Hail Mary when he threw it to Drew Pearson against the Vikings back in the 70s. So that was Jaden Daniels closed his eyes, said a prayer, Hail Mary, whatever, and by divine intervention, potentially, ball ends up in the hands of Noah Brown for the win. And I wasn't horribly impressed with Washington's performance. And they weren't able to catch the red zone a ton. That said, this is an explosive offense, relatively consistency this last Sunday being the outlier. Jaden Daniels, with his arm, his legs. Terry McLaurin is torching the NFL right now. They've got a good running game. Offensive line, again, I'm seeing slight improvements, but I think there needs to be I think this is something they need to address the draft next year. But for Washington, I'm seeing an improvement from their defense, right? 3 points against Carolina. Okay, the Panthers are the worst team in football. But 15 points against a Bears offense off of a bye and a Caleb Williams who've been torching everybody the last few weeks. That was impressive. So they're 6-2 right now. They're, I think, the 2 seed right now in the NFC. They're an excellent football team. The Washington Commanders are the 10th best team in the National Football League. At number 9, moving up a spot from last week, it is the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are the 9th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So I kept them last week on Bryce's Best 10. I kept San Francisco at number 10 despite having a losing record because I said, folks, they got Dallas at home, then they got to buy, then McCaffrey's coming back. This is the opportunity to buy low on San Francisco before they go on a little bit of a run. Now, listen, I still have questions. I still do. About Brock Purdy trailing in the second half of games. He had one drive against Dallas, but he threw one pass. So kudos to him. But I still have questions about that. With that said, they got to buy. McCaffrey's coming back. Kittle's rolling. Even with McCaffrey coming back, you got this kid Garendo running the football. You got Jordan Mason. Kyle Shanahan's a wizard with running games throughout his career, okay? Deebo Samuel dealing with pneumonia, all kinds of issues. He should be back, ready to go by week 10. This defense is excellent. Yes, they gave up a couple of touchdowns to Dallas against a prevent defense. Fred Warner's awesome. Nick Bosa's crushing it. The secondary is really good. We'll see if they get Hufanga back sooner rather than later. We'll see if they get Dre Greenlaw. This is a beat-up Niners team, but they're 4-4. They got a great opportunity. Them and the Rams, I think, are the two teams, respect to Seattle and Arizona, to win the NFC West. They're playing good football right now. Brock Purdy was great with his legs against the Cowboys. The 49ers are the 9th best team in the National Football League. At number 8, falling 4 spots from last week and on a 2-game losing streak, it is the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are the 8th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, back-to-back losses. If you'd have told me Minnesota's going to lose back-to-back games to the Lions and then to the Rams in the span of 5 days, I'd have told you, oh, Sam Darnold turned back into the old Sam Darnold. Actually, no. I thought he was great against Detroit and pretty solid. Not great in the second half in terms of cashing in the red zone, but pretty darn good over the course of the game against the Rams. It's actually been the defense, which has given up 30 points in back-to-back weeks. So they lose Darisaw for the season, which is devastating. That's the best player on the Minnesota's defense. That's an absolutely brutal loss. With that said, they've still got a good pass rush. They've still got Stephon Gilmore and Harrison Smith, good veterans in that on that back end. Flores is still a great DC. Offensively, Justin Jefferson's awesome. Aaron Jones has been a great get for this team. TJ Hawkinson, again, basically everybody's beat up. We're at the midway point in the season. TJ Hawkinson should come back sooner rather than later. It's as good, as I've said all year, as good of a coaching tandem as there's in football. Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores, who've absolutely been crushing it. I think the Vikings should have an opportunity to get the ship right. They got a Sunday night football game at home against the Colts. Not an easy game by any stretch, but Minnesota's fine. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but they got a productive offense and a defense that's not been good the last 2 weeks that I think it's a big opportunity then for them on Sunday to turn it around. The Vikings are the 8th best team in the National Football League. At number 7, also down 4 spots from last week, it is the Baltimore Ravens. Yes, the Ravens, after being at number 3 last week, are at number 7 this week, the 7th best team in the National Football League. And here's why. So all of my fears for this Ravens team. Now, as a Steelers fan, I was exactly sad that they lost to the Cleveland Browns, but my fears for this Ravens team have kind of been realized week after week despite their wins. Is that Lamar's awesome, so has Derrick Henry, but there's 3 glaring flaws for this football team, as talented as they are. Number 1, they have the worst pass defense in football, no question about it. They desperately miss Mike McDonald. Maybe they add a pass rusher. Maybe they go out and get a corner at the trade deadline. I think that'd be beneficial for them. Baltimore cannot stop the pass whatsoever. Number 2, they're bad at closing out games. They lost the game with a double-digit lead to the Raiders. After they were destroying Dallas, Dallas cut it to a 3-point game with a few minutes to go with the chance to get the ball back before Lamar made a play, right? They were up $1 million on Tampa Bay. That ends up being somewhat of a game late. And then against the Cleveland Browns, blowing a fourth quarter lead in that spot. And number 3 is with Baltimore adding Deontay Johnson. My question is this. What do the Ravens want to be? Do they want to be a team with Lamar Jackson throwing 25 to 30 times? Or do they want Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson to drive the offense running the football? And adding Deontay Johnson after Derrick Henry just got only 11 carries. 11 carries for Derrick Henry? What are we doing? I think this team is still, and I thought they gotten out of this after they beat the Bills in week 4. I feel like this team's in a little bit still of an identity crisis, and that's not going to serve them well where they match up in the playoffs once again against the Chiefs, who know exactly who they are, as well as other teams, including one that's above them. The Ravens, by the way, the 7th best team in the National Football League. At number 6, I think this is the highest they've ever been on Bryce's Best 10. It is my Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, are the 6th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So, this is back-to-back games for Pittsburgh, as I talked about to start the show, with 400 yards of offense, back-to-back games, 400 yards of offense. First time that's happened since 2018. On the defensive side, TJ Watt, best player on the defensive side in football, and it ain't close. Okay, you got Alex Highsmith on the other side, who's a great pass rusher in his own right. You got a secondary with Joey Porter Jr. You got Minka Fitzpatrick. You got this Beanie Bishop kid who's got 3 picks in the last 2 weeks, including the game-ending interception to close out against the Giants on Monday Night Football. It's an awesome defense. It's an awesome coach who has this team ready to play each and every week. Arthur Smith, Russell Wilson, George Pickens have been an elite trio. Add Najee Harris, who's playing the best football of his career. Listen, the only reason the Steelers aren't higher is because they're on a 3-game winning streak against 3 2-win teams. Vegas and then the 2 New York teams. But at the same time, Russell's deep ball looks as good as ever. The running game's been great. It's been best it's been, and the defense is what the defense tends to be in Pittsburgh, which is fantastic. So for those reasons, maybe a contender if they're able to dominate in the second half of the season. The Steelers are the 6th best team in the National Football League. At number 5, up a spot from last week, it is the Houston Texans. The Texans are the 5th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So I can hear what you're saying right now. Bryson? Nico Collins is on IR, and they've really struggled without Nico Collins, CJ Stroud in particular, and Stephon Diggs, God bless him, knock on wood for him, just tore his ACL, which is devastating for him. And they haven't looked that good the last few weeks. Fair enough. In the last few weeks, they dropped 41 in New England. Right, New England does have a great defense, but at the same time, Aaron Rodgers couldn't do anything against them. I don't know what happened there. Look great against New England. Okay, the next week, despite CJ Stroud throwing for sub-100 yards, it took a walk-off field goal to beat them at Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers, who are an elite football team. You'll see obviously later on this list. And also, too, surviving a divisional game. Now I get Anthony Richardson 10 for 32. The dude literally cannot throw the football, but able to be good situationally on both sides of the ball. D'Amico Ryans is great. Again, I've said it every week on Bryce's Best 10. This team is talented. There's not much I don't like about them. They're just too young. Again, there's kind of it's been funny. And I think Stroud's definitely better than Purdy. But both Purdy and Stroud have struggled without their weapons in the last few weeks. I just trust the Niners more because they got more veterans and they've been to this stage before. That said, Houston's really good. Right now, I think they're a little bit better than San Francisco. The Texans, winning without their guys right now, we'll see if that continues, are the 5th best team in the National Football League. The team they lost a couple weeks ago is at number 4, up a spot from last week. It is the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are the 4th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. Look, who'd have thought this would be the first thing I mentioned when I talk about Green Bay? I've been blown away by Malik Willis. I mean, come on. This is a guy who I thought was like Anthony Richardson last year, except less athletic. Couldn't throw to save his life. The Titans coaches didn't trust him. Played pretty well against the Colts. Played really well against one of the best defenses of football, the Tennessee Titans, despite their record. And then comes in against the Jaguars in a game where my man Trevor Lawrence looks like he sees the game, an opportunity to win. And here comes Malik Willis with a dime to Jaden Reed to set the Packers in field goal range to win it back-to-back weeks on a walk-off field goal. Listen, I don't know if Jordan Love's going to play this week against Detroit. They, I think, absolutely need him to beat the Detroit Lions, who are red hot right now. But this Packers defense, again, they had a rough day at the office. Trevor Lawrence has been playing outstanding, so I'll give them a pass. But Xavier McKinney is in the 3 or 4 guys up for defensive, or I should say, to come in second for Defensive Player of the Year to one TJ Watt, but the pass rush is good. The secondary's been opportunistic. The upgrade DC has helped. They have as deep a wide receiving core as there is in football. The Green Bay Packers are the 4th best team in the National Football League. At number 3, the highest they've been on Bryce's Best 10, maybe ever, going up 4 spots from last week. It is the Buffalo Bills. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bills are the 3rd best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So, the last few weeks, this team has been absolutely impressive. So, you think about the spot, right? Okay, so they lose to the Texans, they beat the Jets. Okay, they look fine. But they go into a game against Tennessee, who, again, is, I think, number 1 in the NFL in a good way in yards per game given up. And the Buffalo Bills score 34 points. And how many yards they have in that game? The Buffalo Bills had 389 yards against the Titans, win by 24. Then they go to Seattle in a game I thought they'd cover, but it'd be close, and mop the Seahawks, who had just mopped Atlanta the week prior. Geno Smith was a disaster in that game. This Bills defense is real. It's been excellent the last few weeks. Sean McDermott's done a good job on that side. And the fact that this team added Amari Cooper with James Cook, with Keon Coleman, this is why I said, even prior to them trading for Amari Cooper, I said before this year, I said, people think of the Jets are better than this team. They still have Josh Allen, who's miles better than Rodgers, a defense that is as good, if not better, certainly as of late, than the Jets, and a wide receiving core that's got Coleman. It's got Kincaid. Cook runs the football. It's a really good O-line. And Joe Brady, by the way, has been one of the better offensive coordinators in football. This Bills team, people thought last year was the best chance to beat the Chiefs, which I never bought into. This year might actually be the best year for the Bills to win, to beat the Chiefs, at least since that heartbreaking loss a few years ago in the divisional round. The Bills are the 3rd best team in the National Football League. And again, they're going to have to show me that they're not number 1 and number 2, because they've been that from week 1 without fail all the way to week 9. But let's go back through it. At number 2, it is the Detroit Lions. The Lions are the 2nd best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, Dan Campbell? Nick Cable, what'd y'all do again, my man?
Kneecap.
I've never seen... They beat the Titans, which they were supposed to. They were double-digit favorites against Tennessee at home. You're supposed to win that game. But against Tennessee, folks, they win 52-14 in a game that Jared Goff throws for 85 yards. Goff throws for 85. They drop 52. David Montgomery throws a touchdown. They have a punt return by Khalif Raymond for a touchdown. He also catches a touchdown. They got one of the best tight ends in the game, and Sam Laporta. Thunder with David Montgomery. Lightning with Jahmyr Gibbs, who was great in this game once again. This is, to me, far and away the best offense in football. No doubt about it. Best O-line. Goff's great with no pressure. Time in the pocket to throw. Elite running game. Wide receivers. I'm concerned about the Jamison Williams thing. We'll see how that shakes itself out. The legal stuff. But he's a burner. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, they are... Ben Johnson is just toying with people week after week. Dan Campbell's got these guys ready to play. The defense, even without Aiden Hutchinson, has been great the last few weeks. I thought this team was going to win the NFC from the jump. I've seen absolutely no reason to believe that I should change that pick. The Lions are once again, since week 1, the 2nd best team in the National Football League. And at number 1, like Detroit, where they've been all season long, it is the back-to-back Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League, and here's why. Call me when they lose. They haven't lost since Christmas. Mahomes is the best fourth-quarter quarterback by far, by the numbers, in the NFL. Closes games better than anybody. They got one of, if not the best defenses in football. Kelsey, again, not the player they used to be, but on occasion, he can give you a big one. He had 10 catches for 90. I think he caught a touchdown, too, against the Raiders. Now they added D-Hop. They'll get Hollywood Brown back in December. The best coach of football, Andy Reid. The best defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo. Why I keep hearing what's wrong with the Chiefs every week. Here's what I also see. They don't lose, like, ever. Haven't lost since Christmas Day to the Las Vegas Raiders, who they beat in Vegas on Sunday. This is, to me, still... Mahomes has to give me a reason. I've said, I'll bet against Mahomes winning a championship when he gives me a reason to. I'll bet against the Chiefs losing a game until they tell me to. The Chiefs, no question, are the best team in the National Football League. Also, too, actually, let's go and pull up Bryce's best 10. So here's the list right there. So from 10 to 1, it's the Commanders, 49ers, Vikings, Ravens, my Steelers. And then the top 5 from 5 on up, it is the Texans, Packers, Bills. 2 and 1 haven't changed from week 1 on. Lions at 2, Chiefs at number 1, the 2 best teams in the National Football League. Listen, I said these 2 teams are going to meet in the Super Bowl. For me, call me biased. I will accept that. It feels sort of inevitable. It kind of does. It feels somewhat inevitable. I'll just say that. It's noteworthy. Either way. All right. Okay. Let me make sure. Okay. Oh, by the way, too, I did want to mention this. That the Golden State Warriors, my Golden State Warriors, won a game last night. I'm sure not a ton of people saw it because people were watching the World Series game A and B, because Warriors home games tip off at 10 o'clock on the East Coast and people got to go to bed. But the Warriors won a game last night against the New Orleans Pelicans, who are a good basketball team, talented basketball team. Zion Williamson, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram. It's a good team, well-coached team. The Warriors trailed by 20 in this game, in a game that Steph Curry didn't play. That feels big. D'Anthony Melton, good bench player, didn't play. And Andrew Wiggins, who has gotten off to a hot start this season, didn't play. Down by 20 without all these guys. And they won by 18 points. I'll say, and then we'll get into our Texans-Jets prediction, but I wanted to mention this. This is the deepest team in basketball. Steve Kerr, he said and he was right. There are 13 guys that he can play on a nightly basis. You can't play 13 guys in an NBA game. It kills any rhythm you could have, any chemistry with a good lineup you have out there. But I said about the Warriors coming this season that I don't think, as currently constituted, they're a championship contender. That said, I think it is not arguable they're better than they were last year. Replace Klay Thompson, Buddy Hield. Thus far, Klay's actually been pretty good with Dallas. Shout out to Klay. But that's been an upgrade. Buddy Hield's leading the Warriors in scoring over Steph Curry. So the Buddy Hield acquisition, Kyle Anderson, Anthony Melton. It's another year of Moses Moody, Kuminga, Pajemski, Trace Jackson Davis. The depth of this team is crazy. They just need, I've said it from the jump, you got the pieces to get another star for Steph and still maintain a good level of depth. If you get Steph Curry, let me tell you something right now, ladies and gentlemen. If you get Steph Curry, an all-star caliber co-star, I said this for a year. If the Warriors don't make a trade, which I think it would be criminal if they don't. If they don't, I think, because the Nuggets are going to move on from Westbrook. He was good last night. The Nuggets are going to move on from Westbrook. I've said that from the jump. I think the Nuggets are going to win the West over Oklahoma City. If the Warriors get a co-star next to Steph, the Warriors are going to win the Western Conference. But they don't have a co-star next to Steph. So I think right now their ceiling is about in between the 4 and 6 seeds in the Western Conference. But that was, I thought, it's October, I get it, but a very impressive win. And the Warriors actually do play the Pelicans tonight. So here's hoping we can get a little nice baseball regular season series 2-game sweep against New Orleans. So I just want to give my Warriors some love. You know how to do that. Let's go Dubs. All right. Before we get out of here, got a game tomorrow night. I'm not even going to put on the background music because I'm going to make this pretty brief. You got the New York Jets hosting the Houston Texans on Thursday Night Football to kick off Week 9. The Jets, despite losing 5 straight games, despite the fact their quarterback is below average on a good day, despite the fact that the defense has been terrible since they fired Robert Saleh, despite the fact that Devontae Adams has given them absolutely nothing thus far, despite the fact that they've got the weakest coaching staff in the National Football League, and despite the fact that they're still and always will be the New York Jets, they're 2-point favorites against the 6-2 Houston Texans. Now, Houston's beat up. No stuff on Diggs for the rest of the year. Praying for his quick recovery. No Nico Collins, which the offense has not looked the same without Nico. For the Jets, every week, I'll be brief. But when they lost to the Broncos, the problem was the weather. And when they lost to the Vikings, the problem was the coach. And when they lost to the Bills, the problem was the receivers. When they lost to the Steelers, the problem was they weren't playing it with enough joy. And when they lost to the Patriots, well, apparently this will fix everything. This is Aaron Rodgers yesterday, on why things are going to change.
Timo gave me a little fountain of youth. He said he's been taking for a while, all legal, of course. I've been kind of gassing him up. That's why I've been feeling a little bit better. But he's been taking like cayenne pepper and water. So he gave me some before the game. Felt pretty good, but I've been kind of gassing him up. That's why I'm feeling so good. I'm not sure how much that's playing a factor.
Texas win. I don't even know what I need to say. Texas win 27-16. I didn't even feel like this game deserved me to put on the typical carving it up background music. Like this, Texas 27, Jets 16. This is just, I mean, what are we doing? Cayenne pepper. Now the cayenne pepper and water is going to fix everything. Yeah. I'll tell you what, as much as I rip Aaron Rodgers almost daily on this show, I'm going to be a sad man when he retires. I really am. Because that guy gives us content every single. He don't even have to go on the McAfee show this week to give us content. I love JJ Watt today. I don't know. Speaking of the McAfee show, I don't know if y'all saw it. JJ Watt, who comes on McAfee every week, every Wednesday, I think. And AJ Hawk, who was obviously teammates with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, really, really good linebacker, said, Aaron Rodgers said he's going to be mixing cayenne pepper with water. and JJ Watt says, oh yeah, that'll help. It's almost like I can't. It's almost even hard to laugh. I mean, whether coaches, receivers, Joy, cayenne peppers. I mean, this guy's unbelievable. I mean, I can't. I really can't with this guy. It's an excuse. I can't wait for Friday's show, guys. Could be a dandy. So we're gonna have the Vol View. Tennessee, Kentucky. Tennessee's going for Halloween. It's 2 days after Halloween on Saturday, obviously. But they're all black uniforms, which if y'all ain't seen them, Google them right now. They're unreal. They're going to look awesome. They look awesome for that game. The Yankees may lose tonight. So I'm telling you, when the Yankees lose this series, we're going to have a good old surprise in store. A good old, let's just say show opening when they fall short. And if the Jets lose to the Texans, Friday could be something. I'm just going to tell you right now. Friday could be something. Jeff, the Jets are favored against the Texans. I mean, how? I don't know what the case is. Oh, the Texans are beat up. I don't know. Texans beat up or the Patriots? Either way, the Patriots beat the Jets. What are we talking about? I honest to God, I feel terrible for Jets fans. They don't deserve this. They really don't. With that, that was fun. That is all the time we have for today's episode of Carving It Up Live. Be sure to catch us on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there, and it helps the channel grow exponentially. Please be sure to tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live, except for your sleeping cat, who I can't find today. I think I saw him earlier. I may have saw it. Nealon can be an elusive little guy. I'll tell you that. He can be off his own little adventures at times. He's a rambunctious little one, but I love Nealon. Please tell everybody know though about Carving It Up Live, and just importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. Patrick Brown should have some great articles down the pipeline on the Grid's website. As for other incredible content creators, check out their stuff on the YouTube channel, on social media, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. Grid Network. I'll tell you what, this is heaven right now in sports. I mean, I think the Yankees are going to win tonight. I'm going to state my claim to it now. I don't think they're going to lose the Garrett Cole start, but the Dodgers are going to wrap it up in Game 6. I said Dodgers in 6. I'm going to stick with it. Yankees win tonight. Create false hope in their fan base. Hopefully delusional false hope in those idiot fans who try to injure Mookie Betts. Bums there. Thank God. It should never enter Yankee Stadium or any ballpark for that matter ever again, as far as I'm concerned. And Dodgers will wrap it up and win a championship on Friday. But whenever they get knocked out, we're having fun open to Carving Up Live. So please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that affects every single one of us on a day-to-day basis in this country. No matter what anybody tries to tell you, oh, it's not a problem, or oh, there's only one solution to the problem. Both are BS. Both are not true. It's a huge problem that needs a number of nuanced solutions to it. And this, I mean, not just being election year. Elections next week. Early voting is going on right now. I'm going to be voting tomorrow morning. Can't wait. Let's all do our duty, our civic duty as citizens in this amazing country. But keep this in mind when you go in that booth, man. Like, there's a number of issues people are voting on. But if anybody on your ballot in your state or federally shows no sense of urgency to addressing gun violence, got to vote against them or vote them out of office, because we have to address this problem and protect the people in this beautiful nation. Talked about a lot today. Steelers, World Series, Nick Bosa. I freaking made an endorsement on the show. Like, I mean, come on now. It's just an average Wednesday on Carving It Up. We had a lot to talk about. Nonetheless, we'll have even more. Could have a loaded show, depending on what happens on Friday. So stay tuned for that. 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time on Friday night on the Grid Network's YouTube channel and on the Carving Up Live YouTube channel. Please, I beg you, please subscribe to both. We'll see you then. Stay safe out there, everybody. God bless y'all. Peace out. Keep believing y'all gonna win this World Series, Yankees. You ain't, though, for Red Sox. Come on. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.